morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to the first Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow virtual farm tour. We are excited that you are joining us today as we not only take a dairy farm tour, but we're also going to explore some careers within the dairy industry by meeting a few dairy industry professionals who work directly with the dairy farmers we'll meet today. Of course, today's tour wouldn't be possible without the generous support of our sponsors, and you can see them on the screen there, Zoetis and Hydrate. So thank you to those companies. For anyone that is new to the Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow, this program is provided by the Dairy Excellence Foundation in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it is available to students and teachers all across the country. The Dairy Leaders of Tomorrow program is comprehensive, and it's designed specifically to prepare high school students to pursue careers in the dairy industry. It uses a three-part model and offers classroom curriculum, scholarships for educators and students, and on-farm experiences, just like this virtual tour that you're experiencing today. So we welcome you to check out our website at www.dairyleadersoftomorrow.com to learn more about the program and see if this curriculum would be a good fit for your classroom. If you haven't already, we want to make sure that you click the red subscribe button at the top of our YouTube channel so that you can get notified of any future virtual events. For those of you that are joining us live today, you will have the ability to chat questions and comments. Please feel free to use the live comment stream to comment or ask your questions throughout the tour. We're excited to hear those questions, and I know that our farmers are going to be happy to answer them. One other quick note before we get going on our tour is that we do have a discussion guide available to follow along with today's tour. This is an interactive tool that goes over the topics from each tour, reviews the key points made during each career rotation, and provides some direct links to the Kahoot games we're going to play at the end of each tour, and includes additional links where you can learn more about the careers that are discussed today. You can find that link in the description of the YouTube video. You can find it on the DLT Farm Tour page on our website, or you can also find it in the informational email that was sent to you prior to today's tour. So please remember, you need to download that discussion guide and save it as a PDF on your computer before editing or filling it. If you open it from the web, it will not save your answers. All right, I think we are ready to go visit some farms. I wanted to just let you know that our first farm today, that we have some spotty service there. So we are going to be sharing a few pre-recorded videos of the farm. And then later on during our career rotations, we are going to meet Farmer Vickie there and then also be hearing live from our industry professionals. The first stop on today's farm tour is a dairy farm in the southwest region of Pennsylvania. It's called Maple Bottom Farm, and here you can see a map with a star that notes where the farm is located. Maple Bottom Farm is owned and operated by the Baker family, and they're located in Dawson, Pennsylvania, where they house 80 milking cows in a freestall barn and have 2 different milking facilities. Besides milking cows, the Bakers also manage a bed and breakfast right on the farm. And we will also get to hear about their brand new adventure, as you can see from this picture, a seasonal sunflower maze. So without further ado, we are going to kick off our virtual farm tour, and we are going to be joining Brittany Snyder, who is the Dairy Education Manager, and she is out on the farm today, and I think she's joining us from the bed and breakfast. That's what she was hoping for. So, are we ready to meet Brittany?
Hello everyone. Can you hear me? And I hear them now. All right. Hello everyone.
There you are.
Hello. Sorry, we were having a little bit of connection, but welcome everyone to the farm tour. As Heidi said, I am actually here in their bed and breakfast that is on the farm. We are getting to enjoy Maple Bottom Farm and getting to meet Vickie and some other professionals they work with today. But we wanted to start you out here at the bed and breakfast, and hopefully you're seeing some footage as well about what the landscape looks like here on the farm. So around the farm, you can see it's a bunch of rolling hills cows. It's a lot of beautiful landscape and area. They've got an awesome sunflower field we'll talk about later. There's hundreds of acres outside. They've got their farm here in the robot that we'll talk about later. And here in this building that we're in is a bed and breakfast, and this was actually built in, they think, 1903. And something unique I wanted to show you is actually the front door. If you can see the glass of the front door at their bed and breakfast, that was actually a sign of whether or not the house was paid. So they were allowed to put red glass up in their house if they had paid their house off. So something that's just a cool tidbit when you have an old farmhouse like this. There's lots of cool antique and history things that you get to learn. That was just one of the cool things. So out here in Dawson, PA, they've got this really unique bed and breakfast that people can come and stay in, and it's open year round, and it's part of their agritourism with their Maple Bottom farm. So we are actually going to go ahead and move into the beginning of our tour where you'll get to meet Vickie. Vickie currently is out in the farm right now, finishing getting everything ready for you. So we're gonna jump into a recorded video of Vickie showing you the history of the farm. We're gonna be outside, and she'll get to show you the feed alley area of where the cows live. So I will go ahead and send it over to Vickie.
So welcome to Maple Bottom Farm. I'm Vickie Baker, and I'm one of the farmers at the farm. My husband Mike and I, who he's somewhere sorting cows or driving a skid loader, I'm sure. He and I purchased this farm 5 years ago, and we installed a DLT robotic milker here 4 years ago. We have been dairy farming for 14 years. If you look through the tree line, the farm that I grew up on, you could see if the leaves weren't on the trees. We rented that facility from my parents prior to that, and as well as rented the facility that we're currently on from a neighbor. Mike is not from a dairy. I grew up on a dairy farm, and we got married in July on a Monday. And we always laugh when we told people that when you get married and you milk cows, it really doesn't matter what day of the week you get married on, because they need milked either way at least twice a day. And so we chose a Monday. It was July 3rd, so our guests still had the day off, but we did get married on a Monday. And on that day in July, we had no intentions of milking cows. I was working for Pfizer at the time, and he had his own excavating business. And then my dad had a couple of surgeries and some health issues, and he was either going to sell the cows or sell the cows. And Mike, who enjoyed farming and spending time at the farm and working alongside my dad and helping him, he would actually be there whenever I would call home from work and I was out traveling. And he would answer the phone at dinner time with my parents. And he said, I think I'd like to milk cows. I said, are you sure you want to milk cows? Because this isn't something that you did before. And he said, yep, I want to milk cows. So we put together a business plan. We worked with our extension agent and put together a plan through the FinPack model. We sought financing at that time, and it worked on paper. And so we said, you know what, we're going to go for it. And at that point in time, we continued to rent the facility from my parents, and we purchased their cows, and we also rented their equipment in that rental agreement. And that lasted for us for a number of years. And then we actually later, a couple of years later, purchased the equipment from them and then assumed all of that as well, but still continued to rent their facility. In the meantime, we purchased a 70-acre farm where Mike and I currently live, and it was a mile from their place, and we keep our heifers there from weaning to basically pre-fresh. We still do keep heifers, however, I guess a little bit older heifers, depending on the season. We have as many out on pasture right now as we can, but we do put some on the hill, which my brother now owns that farm. My brother and sister each own part of that farm, and we rent that barn from him. We moved here 4 years ago. August 9th were the first cows milked in the robot, and we purchased this 5 years ago from a lady named Delane Rumbaugh, who she and her family had 11. She and her husband had 11 children, none of which were interested in continuing the farm and agriculture. She knew that Mike and I were really interested in that, and she became kind of like our family over the time period that we rented. We first came here, we didn't know them. We needed hay the year that we bought the cows for my parents. They had sold their cows that year due to some health issues, and we became friends with them. They said, hey, do you want to rent it? And we said, sure. And we've cropped it ever since. We started out There's 119 acres here. Some of that is pasture. We haven't actually used the pasture. We have all of the materials to convert about 15 acres back into pasture. Then there's the ground that we're standing on, where the buildings and the house are, and then a couple of acres of probably 10 acres or so of woods. And so we came to the decision that we were going to install a robotic milker. So we approached Mrs. Rumbaugh. At that point in time, we'd asked her previous to that if we could buy the farm, and she'd said no. And we came up with an agreement on a purchase price. We negotiated that. And I guess my advice to people who want to basically be successful in any career, but especially in the industry, is that there are people out there, there are good people out there who want to see dairy farming and agriculture continue. And if you do the right things for the right reasons, it'll pay off. And for us, it did, because we were able to negotiate a great price with her on this facility when we didn't even think it was possible. So it doesn't hurt to ask also one last time. But we do crop here. We crop about 350 acres total. We grow all of our own corn for forage. We don't grow any for shell corn. Prior to this year, we also grew soybeans, but we looked at market prices and we didn't think that we could make any money at that this year. So we decided not to put that in our crop rotation. We did plant sorghum because we had lost some hay ground this year and we needed to add tonnage to our basically for heifer inventory. And then we planted the 5 acres of sunflowers, which were super successful on the agritourism side. And so at this facility, we had rented prior to that, and you can kind of see from the roof line where there's a couple of different additions. If I was to build a dairy new, this isn't the exact facility that I would build and the structures of the barns, but I think it shows a great example of how we were able to utilize existing facilities to upgrade them and still meet cow comfort needs. So we're going to walk over towards the barn. I give a lot of tours, and at this point in the tour, I talk to them about how much cows eat, and the people are amazed that, one cow eats 100 pounds of feed a day and drinks a bathtub full of water. That means that she also makes a lot of manure, and on our farm, our manure storage is only about 3 to 4 weeks of storage. At some point, we'll add more storage, but we didn't want to go from a robot who was going to take milking cows out of daily chores to then hauling manure daily. So we were able to put in 3 to 4 weeks of storage, which is at the far end of the barn, and that is underneath our Guernsey group of cows. And that works, that's worked for us. So as we move into the barn, we've got this addition, and we added 65 feet total to the structure of the barn. Prior to us being here, the addition that was on here when we were renting the facility was a pack barn that we were using for heifers. The gentleman that farmed here had added it on just 2 years before we started to rent, and he milked cows in the stanchions. And we renovated that into a 3-row freestall. And then we added on 65 feet. We added on 25 feet for the robot room and for the physical robot, as well as the milk house. And then we added 40 feet at the end of the barn, which was supposed to be for our dry cows, for our far off cows, which they're now in pasture behind us. But now it's actually the housing for our Guernsey group, and we keep the far off cows either on pasture or again at my parents' old facility that my brother now owns. So you can see when we walk in here, we're a little bit different than most of you might see. Our bunk is raised. We feed that with our TMR. We do go through and we feed that, but the cows do push it out. So we do have to use a skid loader to manually push up feed several times a day. Again, that was one of those modifications that we had to do so that we could have an extended roof line, because I'm standing under where the roof line ended prior to that. So we added this feed alley on so that we could have it enclosed and hopefully not suffer too much air quality. We try to keep the ceilings as high as possible. Our cows come into this barn, and we use our RFIDs, which we do tag the calves the day that they're born. We use an RFID, and that button tag is what we use to manage all the cows. So In the freestyle group, we're in our robot group now. They can go anytime that they want, anywhere. The cows live on mattresses, which we do bed with sawdust. You can see that in the background. And then we use the green free stalls. The green free stalls have been nice for us because we have all of the breeds of dairy cows here. When my parents thought that it was time for us to start 4-H and I was 8 years old, we had an all registered, or I'm sorry, an all grade herd of Holstein cows, and they allowed us each to pick our own breed. At that time, I picked Guernseys because that's what my friends had. My sister picked Brown Swiss because that's what that her friends had, and I'm not sure what our infinite wisdom as 6- and 7-year-olds was that we picked instead of showing against our siblings, we wanted to show against our friends. We added all of the breeds, and right now we do not actually own any milking shorthorns. We do milk a milking shorthorn for one of the 4-H kids that we house cows for. We do house cows for 6 other families. I am the 4-H club leader in our county, and all of those families at one point in time, their families did milk cows, and we feel that it's important that they still have the opportunity to have cows and to become and to still stay involved in agriculture in whatever that field might be, because I think that that's one of the goals of the tour today is to expose you to some different careers, and you don't have to milk cows in order to be involved in agriculture. There's a lot of different job opportunities and a lot of people that help us here on the farm maintain our success. So in this facility, the cows come in. Again, this is our freestyle group. We're a guided flow because they do have to go through the robot, through the sort gate, in order to come back out to the feed bunk, but we're also kind of free flow because we do have a group that is obviously just across the feed alley here that can eat anytime that she wants. They do have to go through, though, in order to get water. And one thing that I've learned about robot facilities is you kind of rethink everything that you know about cows and you make it work. Because, again, the water is one of the things that helps move our cows through. So they're in this area. Again, our Guernsey group here, I'm sorry, our robot group does include Guernsey cows, and it includes all of our other breeds in here. We try to manage our Guernsey group based on the number of pounds of milk that we need to make a batch of cheese. And currently, the facility that we're working with, the maximum number of pounds that they can take at a time is 2,000. So we manage how many cows are over there based on that 2,000 pounds. We found that our robot, that our sweet spot is about 58 cows, but anywhere up to about 63 is still okay. So we do use genomics on all of our Guernseys. We A2 test all of them as well. I do breed every cow of every breed to A2 only Guernsey, or only bulls, not just Guernsey. So whether she's a Holstein or a Jersey, for the last 8 to 10 years, we've been using only A2 bulls. Yep. And so one of the reasons that we're processing our milk for Guernseys is because, you know, 90% of the milk produced in the United States is from Holstein cows. About another 8% is from Jersey cows, and the 2% of the rest of the milk comes from all the other breeds. I'm the treasurer of the American Guernsey Association, and we only register about 4,000 Guernseys a year in this country, so we're not a very big breed. But as time shifted and what we looked for in dairy shifted, so did the composition of the milk to some degree. Now, it's always important to me that people know that all milk is good. And in the 1950s and 60s, when Guernseys were the primary breed in the United States and they produced the majority of the milk, the tagline for them was everything good and more. And so I think that still holds true today, that all milk is good, all dairy milk is good. Guernsey milk just has a little bit more in it. And so they call them golden Guernseys because they do not digest the beta carotene that they consume, so they pass that into their milk, and they give their milk a really rich, deep golden color. Also, Guernsey cows carry A2 beta casein primarily. In the Holstein population, some of the documented research, which needs updated because I'm sure it's higher now, shows that only 15% of Holstein cows are A2, whereas 93% of Guernseys tested carry the A2 gene. A2 beta casein. Beta casein is a protein in milk. Many people think that they are lactose intolerant when they drink milk and they can't digest it. However, we found that the majority of those people are self-diagnosed. They just know when they drink milk, it doesn't really work well for them. It might be the protein that they can't digest, not the lactose. Lactose is milk sugar. A2 is a beta casein protein. And so the majority of our Guernseys are naturally occurring A2. We do have 2 that are tested. One was from sex semen that I used when the sex semen was early in its development and I wanted to use it. Turns out that bull was A1, A2. So his daughter is in our robot group, and I also bought an embryo and she turned out A1, A2, and she is my daughter's very favorite cow, and she doesn't understand why Slinky can't live with the rest of the princesses. But this is our Guernsey group. We milk them twice a day in tie stalls. They stay out here in the free stalls and they hang out, and then we move them twice a day. We have 14 tie stalls in the barn that we have to then switch groups for whenever we go to take the Guernseys in to be milked.
All right, thanks a lot, Vickie. That was very informative, and I see we have lots of questions coming in, going over some of those things that Vickie was talking about, and she is going to join us here in a little bit, and we will get to some of those questions. But right now, I think it's really cool that we can see how farms can change and grow over time, which is exactly what they did at Maple Bottom Farm. Dairy farms across the country are just like this, and they find innovative ways to work with the buildings they have to offer the best quality they can for their cows. So we're going to join Vickie again. She's going to be outside of the milk tank room now, and we're going to learn about their milk storage. And then we're going to check out a pen that they have for their very special cows. All right, Vickie, go ahead.
All right. So we're going to go into our tank room for our robot group. And we do maintain 2 basically separate facilities on the farm. We have our robot group and then our Guernsey group. And so here's kind of where we are able to divert milk. We do feed waste milk straight from the cow. It's delivered within about a half an hour of whenever the cow's milked. So we currently don't pasteurize. I would love to put in a pasteurizer at some point, but that just hasn't been feasible based on the way that the robot works. So we're kind of waiting for technology to catch up a little bit for a herd our size. We milk about 80 cows, 60 of those through the robot, about 20 through the Guernsey group. And so again, here is our tank for the robots. We're going to walk through the office space, and then you'll also see our tank room, which is the original facility. Again, this was an old stanchion barn at one point. We do have 4 units in there. And so this is not very big. Again, we're only milking our Guernsey cows in here. Our goal would be to eventually downsize our herd again so that we can do just 60 cows and do all Guernsey cows. Currently, half of the herd is Guernsey, even whichever pen she's milked in on the mature cow side, and we're at about 2/3 Guernsey on the heifer side. We have been doing some crossbreeding to Guernseys. We do run a bull. I know it's not ideal, but we can't heat detect when we're not there on our heifer group, so we time AI them the first time, and then we put a bull with them for any repeats on our other breeds. So again, original tank here, we run 4 units. And then as we walk out here into the main bank barn, watch your head whenever you come through. We've got 2 groups of cows in here, and this is also where we milk. To the left of us is our vet room, and we are able to do IVF in there. It's usually just storage though, because we haven't done much IVF in the last 2 years because of economics. But as we walk in here, we've got 2 groups of cows, and then we've got our tie stalls. We've got 14 tie stalls here. It's a pretty simple facility. We walk them in, you know, we tie them up, we move the units down as we go, and then they go back out whenever they're done. Our 2 groups in here, our pasture cows come in 2 to 3 weeks before they calve, and they come into a bedded pack, and we do calve them in here. We have 4 cameras on the farm. One of them is above our calving area, one above our feed alley, one in our holding pen, and the 4th one is in our robot so we can see what's going on. The cows that live in this pack over here, we call this our princess pack. And in order to be here, you've got to be special. You either have to be special needs or just a special cow. Unfortunately, the girls in here right now are all pretty much just special. My son's 2 very favorite cows are in here. My niece's show cows in here. The Jersey cow that's in here right now, she actually is sold and she will leave later today and sold for dairy purposes. We do a fair amount of culling for dairy as well. And so she's about 3 weeks fresh this week, and they wanted to calve her in here, didn't want the heifer calf that she was having, wanted to make sure she was good to go, and so we're going to get her out here. But this area gets a lot of traffic, and so we are able to watch cows in here and monitor them if they need it.
All right. That's pretty cool how Vickie has a special place for her princess cows that she called them, her special cows. Thanks for sharing that with us, Vickie. Just want to remind you guys that are watching, don't forget to type in those questions. I have a long list I'm starting already. Some of them I think Vickie has been answering as she's sharing some of these places on the farm. But once we catch up live with Vickie, we are going to have her answer some of these questions. So get those questions in. And I think Vickie is going to show us now the calves on the farm. So let's go see those little babies.
Okay, so welcome to our calves. As you can see, this is Jabber, and she is one of the Guernsey calves that we have here on the farm. Our calves move into hutches right away. We take them from mom pretty much as soon as they're born, within the first hour. We let her lick them off, and then we move them in and make sure that they get their colostrum. We test all of our. We want to make sure that it is of the right quality and the right quantity. So we take our calves right away from mom, and we make sure that they get a gallon of colostrum in the first hour, and then another gallon of colostrum 8 hours later, and we use a Brix refractometer for that. We move them into the individual hutches so that they can social distance from each other and keep from spreading diseases amongst each other. And they maintain their time in the hutches for about 8 weeks on milk, and then we transfer them to once a day. They were getting a gallon twice a day. We transfer them to once a day feeding, and then from there they're getting grain and water the entire one of our Swiss calves. They stay on that grain and water then after that, and then we wean them and move them to one of our other farms after that 8 weeks, and they move into group pens at about 10 to 12 weeks at the other farm.
Awesome. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I think the calves are the cutest part of the farm. We're going to finish up our general farm tour, and Vickie's going to share with us about their recently launched agritourism adventures. I know Brittany shared some of that in the introduction, but Vickie, it looks like you're standing in a sunflower field, so we're looking forward to hearing all about this.
So welcome to our sunflower maze. This is the first year that we planted sunflowers, and we did 5 acres. We did 2 different fields, and they are a black oil sunflower commercial use. And in November, when the moistures get to the appropriate levels, we will actually combine them and harvest them and sell the seeds for birdseed. But that's kind of a secondary market for us. We had 2 active sunflower mazes, which started in August and ran through the beginning of September. The sunflowers themselves take 60 days to get ready. So we planted on June 10th and June 24th, and we assumed that they would be ready on August 10th. It was a bit of a learning experience for us, though, because we were in 2/3 bloom by the 5th of August. So the heat of the summer and the lack of moisture was really key in everything that happened here. Our first maze did fabulous. The sunflowers reached about 7 feet tall, and so you really couldn't see what you were doing whenever you walked through the sunflowers. And people really enjoyed it. So lots of people have been through a sunflower maze, but or through a corn maze rather, but not through a sunflower maze. And it got really cool for them. People of all ages. We drew people from 2 to 3 hours away. We were featured on a really awesome website towards the end of our sunflowers called onlyinyourstate.com, and it features a lot of places in it that are super popular, really amazing places to visit, and we ended up being one of those and recognized as one of the feature locations. So we anticipate next year that we'll plant 3 or 4 different fields of sunflowers and just continue to grow that. The great part was that we drew thousands of people to the farm. It was a great place for people to get out and spend and enjoy with their families. But not only did they come to the farm to see the sunflowers, every person that was here got to experience our calves, and they really got a lot of education there too. So we were pleased to be able to open up and offer that opportunity to them, as well as feature local made ice cream and our own cheese curds. So the sunflowers, again, they'll grow to 7 feet tall. It was also pretty educational because you can see them in here that they get pretty tall, and this field got moisture at the right times. But due to the lack of rain this summer, the second field only matured to about 4 feet. So most people thought we just planted a different variety of sunflowers, and that's not the case. They were definitely just ones that didn't get enough moisture in the right time to germinate and to grow. But it's been pretty popular. We had weddings here already. We've had engagements. We've had anniversaries. A couple celebrated their 68th anniversary. We had baptism pictures here, adoption pictures, and we just drew a lot of people to the farm because they want to be out here and they want to see what's going on. And they're asking what our fall activities are. And at this point, we don't really have anything. We are going to plan a movie on the barn night where we'll do a kids movie and project it onto our barn. So agritourism is part of our business and a growing part that allows us to educate consumers as well as get them to the farm.
Wow, thanks, Vickie. That's a pretty cool adventure there with the sunflowers. I know that video showed the sunflower fields that were nearing the end of their life. And so we're going to show you guys a few photos where the sunflowers were in full bloom, where you can see how beautiful they were. As Vickie said, they planted 2 fields of sunflowers, and not only did this bring a new learning curve and finding out how to care and grow sunflowers, but it also became a popular destination for locals to visit. So in this last photo, you can actually see an aerial view of the sunflower field. And amazingly, Vickie designed this maze herself, and she worked with her husband to cut the sunflowers down just in the right spots to create this awesome maze that was a giant milk bottle with the word milk in it. So what a neat learning opportunity for the many people who came, and they got to experience the farm and the calves and just a lot of education there. So thanks, Vickie, for that tour of your farm. I think we are ready to join Vickie live. Are you there, Vickie?
There I am. Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Hi. Hey, thanks so much for taking us on a tour of your farm.
Sure.
Very educational, interesting things, fun things you have going on there.
Yes, it's been an amazing summer here, Heidi.
Awesome. Well, I know you had a very busy morning. But we have had quite a few questions come in while we were going on the tour. So I'm going to just take a few minutes and ask you some of those. Some of them are ones that you answered in your video, but do you name your cows, Vickie?
I'm sorry, what was the first question? Okay, go ahead.
Do your cows have names?
Absolutely, they have names. They have numbers as well as names. We're in the barn now, and you can see this cow right here. Her name is Moonshine, but her number is 440. So we have two number 440s actually in the barn, number 440 Jammer and number 440 Moonshine. Moonshine was actually purchased from another farm. So we use RFIDs to identify the cows in the computer because it's unique, and it's unique to only her and in the country, actually. Numbers on there, but they've all actually got names too. We're in front of our Princess Pack this morning, which I know you guys saw earlier in the video. And we've got this morning in here, we've got Moonshine, and we've got Kratz named after wild Kratz, and we've got Reba back here. Leah is in our pre-fresh group over here, and at some point Flip Flop went out to be milked, and she may come back in here too. So just a sample of the girls and all their names.
Awesome. And you brought up that they have those tags in their ears. I did have a few questions with people asking specifically. So do they have more than just one tag in their ear?
Yeah. So they've got a couple of different forms of identification on them. They've got a white button tag, which is in their left ear. And you can see that on Moonshine, the white button on the left. And then typically we tag our number tag on the right ear. But again, we purchased Moonshine, so she's got two in one ear, and her buttons were switched. So they've got that white button RFID tag and then a number tag also on each of them. And some of the girls have a blue collar on them, and none of them in this group actually do, because this is our pack. But that blue collar is not an actual identification, although it's got a number on it. It's actually their Fitbit, and it measures activity on them.
Cool. Such awesome technology on the farm nowadays, huh?
Absolutely.
Someone asked the question, how long do cows typically live and produce milk?
So the average cow in our barn is 5 years old. Moonshine is actually 5 years old, and so she's average. The oldest cow on our farm right now is 10. Her name is Vi, and she's going to have her 9th calf here next month. She's due at I think it's November 4th. With a heifer calf, and so they will live depending on the farm, but on our farm it's 5. About a third of our herd is made up of first lactation cows, which are 2-year-olds that have had just one calf. Another third is made up of second lactation cows, and then the last third is made up of those cows that are third lactation and greater, and they don't have their first calf until they're 2 years old. So those are our 5-year-old and greater animals in that third group.
Okay, and that actually leads to another question. Someone asked, how long are cows pregnant?
Yeah, so cows are a lot like people. They've got a 21-day period that goes between their cycles, and then when they become pregnant, they're pregnant for 9 months, and they put the biggest amount of energy into growing their calf during that last trimester. So that's why we give them that 2-month dry period that they have, which is the time from one calf to the next, and they go out and they just spend 2 months basically on maternity leave, and they take that amount of time to grow that calf and develop it during that 9 months.
Okay, and somebody asked about why you take the calves from their mothers right away and why they can't stay with their mothers.
Right. We get that question a lot, Heidi, and the reason is pretty simple. It's sometimes dangerous for the calf to stay with mom. There was one year where we had a cow who stepped on her calf because we weren't there right away, and it broke its leg. We were able to successfully put a splint on that calf, and she grew fine, and did have her own calf here just last year. So it can sometimes be dangerous, but the main reason is because of health, and it's health for the calf. A calf is one of the few animals that's born with virtually no immune system, so she starts to develop her entire immune system as soon as it's that from her colostrum. And I mentioned a little bit in the calf segment about that we make sure that each calf gets a full gallon of colostrum in the first 2 hours. Now, some of the cows won't even make an entire gallon of colostrum in their first milking. And so if we relied on Mother Nature and the calf to actually nurse her, she wouldn't get enough colostrum. It also might not be a good enough quality of colostrum. We measure the colostrum with a Brix refractometer to determine how good it is. And if it's of poor quality, we keep frozen colostrum and have a replacer that we can use to supplement if needed. Then we give her a second feeding 8 hours later, another entire colostrum. So we keep them in individual pens so that they can social distance. I know that a lot of you are watching from home right now, and some of you might be in school, but you're probably a little bit further apart in your desks than you were when you left school last March. And that's so that we don't spread diseases between calf to calf, because most calves take in diseases through their mouth and through their nose. And when a calf is born, she's up and walking, and within an hour or two, really. And when she stands up, she's not ready to run a race, although they get pretty fast pretty quick. But she may stand up and nosedive down to the ground, and it might not be as clean as we would like, or she, made a mess when she had her calf right there. So we want to take her out. We want to keep her clean. We want to make sure that she can start to develop that immune system so that she becomes a healthy calf and into a productive cow.
Absolutely. And that actually leads really well into a question that somebody had. Can cows catch a virus? And how do you protect them from that?
Yes, cows can absolutely catch viruses. Cows get viruses which cause a variety of different diseases in them, but we do a great job at vaccinating our calves against many of those viruses. There are about typical viruses that we can vaccinate our cows for, and we do that with our calves once their immune system is starting to develop. They get their first injectable vaccines around 4 months, but the day that they're born, they get vaccinated in their nose against 3 different viruses: BRSV, IBR, and PI3 are those 3 viruses. And so we want to protect them right away so that they can start to develop that. And we use the in-force vaccine, and that creates an immune response within 24 hours. So we want to protect them because viruses can cause a variety of diseases, including rest diseases, as well as reproductive diseases.
Awesome. So a lot similar to humans, that we, stay on a vaccination schedule. And
right.
Yeah. Awesome. I had some questions come in about your A2A2. So somebody wanted to know, what's the A2A2 bull? And you did explain the A2A2 milk in the video, but if you just want to give us a little more about, what you're doing with that and what that is.
Sure. So a calf inherits two. They inherits A2 and A2, hopefully, one from each parent. So that's why we make sure that they're homozygous for that, meaning that they've inherited the A2 gene from both parents. They get one from both. So we test those. All of the bulls pretty much now in AI are tested for A2. So we know when we're selecting, and some of you guys are in science class, and so think about a typical Punnett square, and you put an A2 and an A2 and draw your quadrant box, and that's how we can determine what the likelihood is that that cow, if mated to a non-A2A2 bull, would end up as A2A2 herself. But we've been concentrating on that. All of the bulls and all of the breeds that we've been using, we've been doing that since for probably 8 to 10 years, like A2A2 bulls, for not just our Guernseys, which are the highest naturally occurring, but also in our other breeds.
Awesome. Well, that's a good lesson for us to learn about, the genetics and how you guys do all of that stuff. All right, I think at this time we are going to transition back to Vickie. Vickie's going to just give us a little bit of information on that A2A2 milk that she discussed earlier and what they do with the Guernsey Association. I know she mentioned in her video earlier that they milk a lot of Guernseys there, and so she's going to just tell us a little bit of background on that, and then we'll get some more questions for you, Vickie. So go ahead.
Sounds great. Thanks. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit next about the cooperative that we have formed here with ourselves and a couple of other Guernsey herds across the state. The name of our cooperative is Naturally Golden Family Farms, and while most of our milk goes to Land O'Lakes, we have formed a cooperative, myself, other partners in that co-op in Pennsylvania. Our goal is to be able to market Golden Guernsey milk. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, Golden Guernsey milk was the primary milk of the 50s and 60s, and the breeds have shifted in popularity over those years. But I became passionate about Guernsey cows at a very young age, and my first Guernsey calf, actually, Garnet, one of the rooms in our bed and breakfast is actually named after her. So I've been thinking about Guernsey cows for a long time. We're joined today right now by Flip Flop, and Flip Flop is actually my son's favorite cow here in the barn, and she lives in our Princess Pasture. So the idea behind the Guernsey Co-op was to create a niche market for ourselves and for other friends in the Guernsey community. And we wanted to create that market so that we could produce that golden Guernsey milk and other dairy products. So again, the tagline in the 50s and 60s was everything good and more. And we talked about the beta casein, the A2 beta casein, which is increasing in popularity in certain sects of the public. For example, is autistic and has celiac disease, so he has a gluten intolerance. And he also, whenever he was visiting the Cleveland Clinic, his doctor told him that he should be drinking A2 Guernsey milk. And so in that population, that is a common intolerance that happens. And so we know that that's a growing population, and for other people as well, that they can't digest that milk. And so we're not just focusing on A2 though, we're focusing on golden Guernsey milk, and Guernsey milk is golden in color. If we were actually to compare it to regular table milk, it would look yellow whenever you actually look. That's because the Guernsey cow does not digest the beta carotene that is in her milk or that she consumes. And so she passes that directly out into her milk to you. And so it gives that milk a golden hue and a nice, rich, dark flavor. Guernsey cows also are high in fat and protein. They make a little bit less milk than the Holstein cow, but they have higher fat and protein in their milk. And so when we set out in this adventure, it was several years ago. And Mike and I knew that here on the farm that we wanted to do something, and we had friends that wanted to do things. So we got together, we formed some teams, and we started to talk. And we want to thank the Center for Dairy Excellence for actually helping us with some of those transformation teams, because we did apply for some grants and got those, and that kind of got some of that rolling. So she's liking to show off, right? You can tell that she should be at a show today, but we decided to spend the day here with you guys instead. And so we decided to work with friends to get this done. Now, none of us actually wanted to handle the actual manufacturing of the product. We want to handle the marketing of the product and the making of the product. We didn't want to invest the actual money into, at this point in time anyway, the actual manufacturing equipment. So we've partnered with another farm, and we've actually made 4 or 5 batches of cheese now. We've got cheese curds that we've made, and we have cheddar, which is currently aging, and it will be 90 days old on Christmas. So that's pretty exciting that we'll be able to bring a cheddar to market. And I think they're going to bring me some of the cheese curds here that we've got. Just pulled those out this morning. But those are some of the cheese curds that we've been making. Now, cheese actually was secondary to us. We actually want to focus on making the milk. And well, we make the milk every day, but bottling the milk. And project will started, we hope soon. Next week, I actually meet with the processor. Our board will get together with the processor who has agreed to bottle that milk for us. And so again, this has been a real process and a real journey, something that we've been working on. Our co-op actually was established last year, and it hasn't been an inexpensive venture either. Capital was a huge part of this, and we knew that we wanted to, again, be able to have other Guernsey breeders join us later. So we formed we've formed a co-op. We have a president. I'm the president. We have a treasurer and a secretary and other board members as well. For that, we have a weekly check-in. We have regular meetings, and we have actually, at this point, pretty much all of the cheese that we can make. At this point in time, we've got sold, but we are seeking other adventures. So one of my jobs will be, as we move forward, to actually work on selling the cheese. And so that involves, setting up appointments with not just distributors, but with chefs. We've had chefs here to the farm. We had a local culinary group come out and tour this past summer, and they talked to us about the things that they want and the local foods that they want, because they do believe that they want fresh quality products. And so I know that many of us are involved in dairy, but it's different. They want that local connection, and it doesn't matter. I tell them where in Pennsylvania they're getting their dairy products from, but we certainly would love them to buy, our Guernsey products. And we're going to just focus on a couple to start. As I said, we've got this cheddar cheese going and aging. We're making a butter case cheese. Guernseys themselves came from the Isle of Guernsey, which is just off the coast of France. And so buttercase is a creamy, soft cheese that stems from that region. And so it kind of will take us back roots. Again, there's 6 of us that are in the co-op, and as we grow in capacity, we will grow the number of farms that we're able to bring on board. In Western Pennsylvania, we've got about 12 or 15 Guernsey herds, which is pretty unique because we only register about 4,000 Guernseys in the United States annually. So many of them are concentrated here in Western Pennsylvania, and we hope that many of those other producers can come on into the co-op. Again, here we have a separate group. Our Guernsey group is milked in tie stalls, which we do twice, and they come in behind us. We do genomic test them. We test for A2 as well, and then we process that milk, load it into a separate tank, and then it goes in from there into a separate truck to the cheesemaker currently. And then we have like I said, someone who will be starting to actually manufacture and process the milk. The interesting part about this job is just meeting with the marketing agencies, talking to them about all the social media that they can do for us. We have a great video that they came out and helped us put together that we can share, and I can share that to you guys. If you follow our page, our Maple Bottom Farm page, we'll have the Naturally Golden links on there too. Also, there's a lot of paperwork and regulation that go into this. I have paperwork that's due to the state right now. I probably need to get some of that in, and also quality reports that we have to send in. So those are some of the things that, we have to do as board members. We also have a consultant that we brought on who is helping us to push this project forward. So while some folks say that, they want to do this because they want to eliminate, and I can honestly say that it's been a real learning curve for us, and we're still pretty early in the process, but there's a lot of things that go into marketing and selling your own product.
Absolutely. Thanks for that information. So just so our viewers are clear, you have this separate group of Guernseys that don't get milked in that robot that we saw earlier, correct?
That's correct, Heidi. I guess we might have missed that part in the tour. So we have a separate group of Guernsey cows. We're actually managing the number of cows in that group right now because our cheesemaker can process 2,000 pounds of cheese, 2,000 pounds of milk time in his vat, and our Guernseys are currently yielding 12.5% on the cheese manufacturing. So we're managing the number of cows that go into this separate tie stall group. You can see we let those cows out in the freestall area still, but we bring them in here twice a day. We milk them separate than the robot, and that milk then goes into be manufactured into cheese. And again, we're kind of managing the number of cows based on the number of pounds that we need right now.
Yeah, so that actually was a question somebody brought up when we were with the robot. How come you measure the cow's milk in pounds, but then when we go and buy it at the store, it's measured in gallons?
Sure. So on a dairy farm, we're paid per 100 pounds of milk that we produce. And so in the state of Pennsylvania, the average cost of production is about $18 to $19 per 100 pounds. And then we get paid from whoever it is that's purchasing our milk from us on the per 100 pounds. And so I don't know why it ever was 100 pounds actually, but there are 12.8 pounds, I'm sorry, there are not 12.8, that was on our yield, I'm sorry. There are 9.6 pounds of milk per gallon, and so about 12 gallons in there. I'm sorry, I said 9, it's 8. My numbers are all screwed up right now, Heidi, I'm sorry. But they buy a gallon of milk, which is 8.6, and that's about 12 gallons is what we sell it for per 100 pounds.
Mhm.
Okay. And so on your farm, about how much milk are you making every day? Maybe tell us, with the robot herd and then also with the Guernsey herd.
Right. So again, we're managing the Guernsey herd to 2,000 pounds, and then depending on the number of cows that are through the robot, which we're only putting about, right now it's really low. There's only 47 cows going through there because in a couple of weeks we're going to have a lot of cows calve. But we're shipping about, I'm trying to think of total pounds here right now. We probably ship about 7,500 pounds of milk every other day to 8,000 pounds.
Okay. And so actually you answered a few questions with what you just shared with us. Somebody wondered about, if you're doing any other products besides milk, and you said about the cheese curds and stuff. So that's really good information that our viewers were wondering. And just those of you viewing live, if you have questions for Vickie, get those in. We have a few minutes here to answer some questions. Earlier, Vickie, I had somebody ask some questions on your feedback on, are the cows harming the atmosphere with the methane they leave off when they, leave out gases? Do you have any thoughts you want to share on that?
Sure. Without actual studies in front of me, I'm sure that we can reference those, but absolutely, I can talk to you a little bit about methane. So cows do produce methane. They produce methane whenever they burp. They produce methane in their manure, but there are a lot of studies out there that show that the greenhouse gases that are being emitted aren't necessarily coming from cows. There were some commercials that were out recently from a fast food restaurant that said that, cows had farts, and they weren't really well received actually by a lot of people. And they do, they make a lot of smell sometimes and a lot of mess. But no, methane gas, if you looked at the number of people that were now off the street in states like California and in cities like LA, they have their better quality now because people haven't been traveling, and we do it every day. We produce more methane gas across the state and across the country in other industries and in other consumable goods, things like cars. And so yes, absolutely, cows are going to produce methane. It is what it is. But what I can say is that we're producing more with today's cows than we did in the past. And so the cows of today are more efficient. My brother talked to you a little bit earlier on our crop side about growing BMR corn. So the cows are digesting more nutrients. Digesting nutrients weren't previously available, and they've become more efficient. They produce more milk than they did, like I said, in the 50s, 60s, back into the 20s. The number of cows actually has decreased dramatically over that period of time, while the amount of methane gas that's being produced overall has gone up. So I'm pretty sure it's not really cow related.
Well, thanks for your insight on that. I know that's a topic that a lot of people have questions on, so we appreciate that. I've had a few questions about what happens with the cows if when they stop producing milk, or if they get sick and pass away. What do you guys do with the cows then?
I'm sorry, I think I missed part of that. If they get sick, what happens to them then?
Yeah, or when
they stop
they're
producing
done,
milk.
when
Yep.
they're done
Yeah,
producing
sure.
milk. Yep.
Okay. So dairy cows are unique in that they actually have two careers in their life. They start out their career in training whenever they're growing until they meet 2 years old. And then they end up like Flip Flop here, who is 2. She's had her first calf, and she's now producing milk. And hopefully she's going to be here for a number of years. Certainly, especially Flip Flop, her mother and her grandmother were extra special here on farm, and their careers ended a little bit differently because they're actually buried in the pasture. They're the only 2 other cows actually buried here. But cows typically, they end their career and they leave the dairy industry, and then they start their second career in the beef industry. And so dairy cows enter the beef industry, and they become mostly ground meat that you would have in fast food restaurants, or the better cuts, the better finished animals will end up as steaks in some of our chain restaurants. But we produce a high percent of the beef in this country comes from dairy cows who are retiring from their dairy career for one reason or another, whether she is no longer fertile and we couldn't get her pregnant, or maybe she became lame and it got hard for her to walk around. Whatever that reason is, here on our farm, our veterinarian, who you'll meet at the next farm actually, he's here at least once a month. He'll be here next week. His day is Tuesday this month, but he'll be here. It should have been today, guys, but we rescheduled. So he'll be here on Tuesday, but we work with a veterinarian to minimize that. Again, we talked earlier about vaccines, minimize diseases. And if we do have to treat a cow, we do with antibiotics here, but I do want to let you guys know, and I'm not sure that we talked about this, but I do want to let you guys know that we do use antibiotics on the farm, absolutely. But every load of milk in this country is tested for antibiotics. So know that your food is safe. Know that it's all antibiotic free, no matter what the label says on it, and know that that your cows are treated to the best of our ability. And that we're producing safe quality food for you.
Well, you can tell that cow there is spoiled and loved.
Yes.
One last question I have. One of the reasons we had to be virtual today is because of COVID. And so we have had quite a few questions come in, wondering, do cows get COVID? And, can humans pass it to the cows and those kinds of things? I don't know if you have any insight on that or not, Vickie.
Sure. So COVID has certainly impacted us here on the farm very minimally. We have a sign at the end of our driveway. Again, the Center for Dairy Excellence provided those that, we're still working every day. So farms continue to work crisis. Can cows get COVID? It's a great question. So COVID is a coronavirus. And we talked earlier about that colostrum in the calves. Our cows actually are vaccinated for several diseases, which they includes rotavirus, coronavirus, E. coli, and Clostridium as dry cows, so that they can build an immune response for those diseases, which again includes corona. However, the corona strain that we talk about in cows is not the same corona strain that we talk about in human health and with COVID. They're different. Typically in cows, the corona strain talking about is to deal with fecal diseases, with causing scours or diarrhea in cows, and not necessarily with respiratory disease, although it can happen. And but again, the strains are different in cows. So cows can get corona, but they don't get COVID-19.
Okay. And somebody did wonder, how often do you vaccinate the cows?
Yes, so I worked for a company called Zoetis, and we are a manufacturer of vaccines. And I work with veterinarians and protocols vaccination. So on our dairy, what we do is each calf her mom gets vaccinated while the cow is dry before she has her calf, so that she gets immunity from vaccines right away through colostrum. Then as soon as the calf is born, we give it an oral vaccine for that rota and coronavirus. That has to happen at least 30 minutes before she gets that colostrum, because it goes through her mouth and it has to start that way. Then in that first day, 12 hours later, we give a vaccine that goes through her nose, an intranasal vaccine. And that helps with 3 viruses, like we talked earlier, IBR, BRSV, and PI3. Wait until she starts to, right before we move her into those group hens, we give that in-force vaccine again. And then after that, she'll get 2 more vaccines at about 4 to 6 months old, where we bring in some lepto and some other diseases that we vaccinate for. Then she gets another one pre-breeding, because we also worry about cows getting reproductive viruses. So we give her a vaccine pre-breeding. And then we wait until she's pregnant and she comes back in again and gets another, those vaccines that help her to prevent diseases like mastitis, to keep her from getting E. coli mastitis. Also to pass things on to her colostrum. And then again, that cycle starts about 30 days after she has her own calf. Again, we give her another one of those viral vaccines. In addition, in the wintertime, you can actually vaccinate with a Bacterin for bacterial diseases, bacterial pneumonia, and so we give that seasonally each year. So a cow has a full life cycle of immunity that she gets from vaccines, and that just happens at different stages, and we work with our veterinarian to determine what the risks are on our farm, because just because of that is being manufactured doesn't mean that it's necessarily needed on somebody's farm.
Very good. Well, we really appreciate the chance to tour Maple Bottom Farm this morning and to learn about a few of the key people that work with you, like your accountant, your robot technician, your crop specialist. We just want to thank you so much for letting us be with you today. It's been a wonderful learning experience. Is there any other comments you had as we wrap up?
I just want to encourage each of you that are listening to explore different careers, to know that whatever career that you choose, always promote yourself to the best of your ability, and to know that, you know, things may change, and that people are always watching you and watching you develop, and they will follow you throughout your career. So whatever career that you choose, just make sure that you give it as much as you can. And I also want to thank the folks that were here today: Jeff Ansel from Nutrien, Angela Pecora from $1 Million Accounting, and also Kevin Hall from Graham's Dairy Supply, who I got awake this morning at 4 o'clock on a technician call because when I got to the barn, the robot was stopped. So again, these people are important to our business, to helping us every single day. And there's just so many people out there that agriculture and dairy in particular can so many different career opportunities, and people that we use every day on our farm to help us be successful. So thanks to them, thanks to you guys at the Center for Dairy Excellence for putting this on, and I hope that there are questions that you'll feel free to reach out and, you know, talk to us at any time.
Absolutely. Well, we just really appreciate you sharing all of this. I know it's been a busy and crazy morning for you, but there's lots always going on a farm. So thank you. Sure. Your farm and family are beautiful, and we just it was a pleasure learning more about them. As we wrap up this morning's tour,
thanks, Heidi.
Thank you. I just want to once more thank our sponsors, our partners who would not be possible to have this tour if we did not have these. So Hydrate and Zoetis. Once again, thank you to both of those companies. They do have incredible opportunities for careers within the dairy industry. So if you're looking for jobs, check them out.